The following may contain offensive language, adult humor, and or content that some viewers may find offensive. The views and opinions expressed by any one speaker does not explicitly or necessarily reflect or represent those of Mark Radulich or W2M Network. Please listen with caution, or don't listen at all.
There'll be spectacle, there'll be fantasy, there'll be daring do and stuff like you would never see.
Be a movie. Yeah, we're gonna be a movie.
Starring everybody
And me. There'll be heroes bold, there'll be comedy, and a lot of fuss that ends for us real happily. Be a movie. We can watch it all develop. Starring everybody.
And me. We'll take the world and set it on its ear.
Come on, join in. We're gonna start right here.
And we are going to start right here. Hello, and welcome to a Radulich Broadcasting premiere podcast, triple feature. I am your host, the mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified, Mr. Mark Radulich. And he's on the catwalk. Yeah, on the catwalk. He shakes his little tush on the catwalk. Ladies and gentlemen, straight from Milan, Dorian Price. How do you do, sir?
Not too bad, boss. How we doing?
I'm in a good mood for once.
Well, you'd have to be with these three movies. If you were coming in a bad mood, I'm like, let's just not do these three movies, man. Let's move on.
I'm so depressed. We're going to talk about tits tonight, everybody. Ugh.
Oh.
No, I'm feeling good. And I'll tell you, Mr. Dorian Price, this is one of many podcasts we'll be doing this year where we're having fun. The kind of fun that Mark Radulich likes to have. Because it's been a while since we've had fun here on the Radulich Broadcasting Network, where we just talk about stuff because we want to talk about it, not because there's the 80th remake or sequel or requel or prequel or dequel or zequel or gone, I've lost a brain cell.
Right.
In the cinema. So tonight, we're tackling one of my favorite subjects. The raunchy 80s sex comedy. The hardbody films of the days of yore. The VHS nudie cuties, if you will. And I'll tell you what, Dorian Price. I was not parented. I grew up in the age of the affordable VCR, when that was a thing, and the rise of the mom and pop VHS rental store. And my father would say, son. He called me son, and I would say father. I called him father. He would be, go, roam the video store and find yourself a cinema classic and don't bother me with it. Just get the tape and let's go.
Whoa.
And I would say, yes, father. And he had a rule. He said, I can listen to any music as long as he didn't have to hear it, and I could rent any tape as long as he didn't have to watch it. You know. It was
kind of setting us up for disaster already, but hey.
It was an interesting parenting technique, to say the least. And because I was a horny young boy, I always found myself in the comedy section, specifically renting the raunchy 80s sex comedies. You know, Porky's, Revenge of the Nerds, Hot Dog the movie, Hamburger the movie, because, you know, you have to have both. Ski School, you know, things like that. Police Academy, I think you could classify as a raunchy 80s sex comedy. By the time we got to Police Academy 17, not so much.
No,
but
we'd lost the tracks by that point. That series I have actually seen, despite my young tender age of 27. I've actually watched those. But so yeah, I think the first couple are definitely raunchy sex comedies, and then
that first one for sure. The bonfire scene from Police Academy lives rent free in my head, even at the tender age of 48. So. What about you, sir? When I told you at gunpoint you had to come on and talk raunchy sex comedies with me, and you went, I'm going to do what now? What is your relationship to the subgenre?
Well, again, I was not really parented either, but mine was a different side of the tracks. So, with a strict Baptist upbringing, but one parent had come into religion a little late in the game, so I'd already watched a whole bunch of these. movies I watched when I was growing up were Caddyshack, Dr. Detroit. Trying to think of another like really off the wall. Why the fuck was I able to be allowed to watch this? It'll come to
RoboCop?
me later in the show. I'll just scream it out and be like,
was
"That
gonna
was
say,
the thing from earlier."
you had to have seen RoboCop.
Actually, no, that wasn't until later. Because this is where the tracks jump.
Okay.
If it was something that the one parent had watched when they were younger, like Caddyshack and stuff like that, that they found sexy and hot, that was fine. But the bladed murderer that kills you in your dreams, no, we can't watch that. That's against God.
Sure.
It's like, this is about 4 prostitutes that Dan Aykroyd has to dress up as a pimp and protect from this evil crime lord. This is fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have your answer for you. I've done the math. The sum total is, if I like it, God likes it, and it is good. If I don't like it, neither does God, and it is bad.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
One piece, my son. Yes.
Oh, so nomine patria et filii et spiritus sancti. But yeah, no. So this was kind of interesting for me. I was excited about 10 because I did grow up, and I guess you could throw these in here too, with Peter Sellers and Blake Edwards' Pink Panther movies, because a couple of those can fall into that raunchy sex comedy. I think Shot in the Dark definitely, and Pink Panther Returns definitely have more of a raunchy, what the hell are we doing here thing. But I've always loved Blake Edwards. One of my favorite Blake Edwards movies is The Great Race. I think it's a classic. If you haven't seen it, go watch that. Not what we're talking about tonight, but that one really grabbed me. With Dudley Moore starring, I've obviously seen Arthur. I loved his comedy style.
I didn't realize what Dudley Moore was, because all I knew him as was Arthur, and years later the critic is going to lampoon Dudley Moore as only being that character and being perpetually drunk. I've got a liver the size of coconuts.
Right. Which, hey, we'll be actually W2M Network will be reviewing the critic show coming up soon. So there's that.
Because we're having fun, and I love my friends.
If you didn't get that joke he's making, tune in next time. Well, not next time, but later down the road.
Dudley Moore was like a leading man and kind of a sex symbol, which is weird because he was sort of he was kind of Hugh Grant before Hugh Grant was Hugh Grant.
Yeah, it almost like oh god, I never remember the actor's name, but they make a joke in riff tracks like, guys, I'm only here because Chris Pine hasn't been invented yet.
Right.
So and Dudley Moore just seemed like the test subject of like, okay, will this kind of goofy but attractive British thing work? It does. Cool. We got this 19-year-old we want to throw into the race here.
So here's what we're talking about tonight. The 80s hardbody movies. So we're going to be talking about Hardbodies, then Spring Break, and then the aforementioned 10. And, here's the thing that you must understand. When people think of iconic American cinema, they rarely jump straight to beachside hijinks, topless party montages, again, the aforementioned bonfire scene from Police Academy, and clueless middle-aged men trying to reclaim their youth. But perhaps they should. Films like 10 from 1979, Hardbodies 1984, and Spring Break 1983 are part of a uniquely 1980s phenomenon, the sex comedy boom, where the combination of sun, skin, and slapstick served as both low-budget gold mines and cultural time capsules. Though 10, starring Dudley Moore, as we mentioned before, and introducing... Okay, I can't whistle loudly. Bo Derek, hubba hubba, rar, predates the others and leaned more into adult romantic fantasy than outright teen farce. It planted the seeds for the genre's obsession with unattainable beauty, aging masculinity, and self-aware hedonism. And boy, if you don't think those things are relevant in today's society, you haven't been on social media at all ever, especially TikTok.
You are living under that rock that Patrick from SpongeBob lives under.
Yes.
And you may actually be Patrick from SpongeBob. See your doctor and get a actual diagnosis.
Now it's my turn. But it was Hardbodies that truly shifted the tone, ushering in the rise of the raunchy, youth-driven beach comedy that would define a generation of VHS rentals and late-night cable rewatches, and my youth. Hardbodies wasn't the first to feature babes and bros on the sand. Yeah, you got to go back to Annette Funicello and the beach blanket bunnies and stuff like that. I mean, look, the raunchy sex comedy has a long storied history in American culture that predates the era that we're talking about, but it was kind of like wrestling and cable. The raunchy sex comedy and VHS shot it to the stratosphere. Um, it was the blueprint that codified the formula. Old dudes hire a young ladies' man to teach them how to pick up women in Malibu, resulting in a series of increasingly absurd, sexualized, and tone-deaf adventures. It's pure wish fulfillment, soaked in neon tans and synth-heavy soundtracks. But it also became the prototype for films like Spring Break, Private Resort, and Hot Dog, the movie. Its unapologetic objectification and throwaway plotting weren't accidental. They were the selling point. And for better or worse, Hardbodies helped shift sex comedy from teen coming of age, such as Porky's, which Jason and I reviewed back in the old-timey times of video in 2021, believe it or not, and Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Oh, gosh. How you doing, Mr. Hand? To pure exploitative fantasy, the shift matters because it marked the moment when these films stopped pretending to be about growing up and started reveling in never growing up at all. The film legacy of Hardbodies isn't about quality or prestige, and boy, is that true. It's about influence, formula, and the way it captured a certain type of American escapism that filmmakers are still riffing on or reacting against today. You know, the phrase "we couldn't make this movie today" gets bandied around a lot, Dorian, but I truly believe, and I have proof to back this up, you could not make the raunchy sex comedy today as it is portrayed in movies like Hardbodies and Spring Break, and to a lesser degree, 10. They tried with the Jennifer Lawrence movie No Hard Feelings, but even that it definitely was more sentimental than any of these tended to be.
Well, yeah, and it definitely did feel like a time capsule. If I will use a movie that both you and I actually reviewed as well. No Hard Feelings felt like the kind of love letter that Tim Burton's Sleepy Hollow was to the Hammer films. No Hard Feelings definitely felt like they had seen these movies and their compatriots and had wanted to make something like that, and it didn't quite land. It wasn't bad. I think the audience for these movies is to the point now that they'd already seen it, and we have the classic ones like this and Caddyshack and so forth that they would go back to sooner than trying to see someone try to resurrect it as, you know, this is a new idea. No, it's not. It's they've been doing it for 40 fucking years, dude. You know.
These come from a time when men and women seem to like each other. And I think we struggle with that now. We are, I don't know how modern culture drifted into junior high dances with boys standing on one side of the gymnasium and girls standing on the other, and nobody will ask the other one to dance, and so they're just standing across from each other like they're about to do a Braveheart or a Wall of Death, if you will, if you've ever been to a metal show or a punk rock show. You know, just kind of run at each other's
Freedom!
Yeah, we've lost something in the culture, Dorian. But yeah, we got away from these. I think American Pie was probably the last hurrah. You know, the death throes of the raunchy sex comedy. Because after that, we seem to, I think, through necessity to some degree, because it's not like I'm tone deaf to the ideas of, you know, everything that made the Me Too movement what it was years later. So people would just like, can we not do objectification and sex, and yet third wave feminism, and you know, gosh, it's just such a toss salad of good and bad that came from this era of filmmaking that, you know, they got away from it for a while. And I think to some degree, you know, it needed a rest.
Well, I really think that the sex comedy kind of handed the crown down to what I'm going to call the stoner comedy. And
that's what I was getting to. We gave up sex for drugs.
Yeah, it's like Seth Rogen took the crown. And
now I'm the prettiest girl.
Yeah, it's like, and here we go for the next 15 years. I hope you guys enjoy this, because we're not going anywhere.
Yeah. So I think in the time of a rather large group of women on TikTok screaming, "Where are all the men?" it's good to go back now. It's good a time as any to go back and kind of look at where we came from an art point of view. And this, this does qualify as art in, a celebration of sex and relationships and a time when men and women liked each other, Dorian. Do you remember that, Dorian? Remember when men and women used to like one another? I remember. No. Petridge Farm remembers.
I don't remember at all. I come into the game and we're already in the midst of the war, and I'm going, what the hell?
Yes, that's true. You were born in the trenches.
I just got here. I don't know what's happening.
Dorian came on this podcast. All I know is war, man. The women are so angry.
I've seen some shit, man.
I am a child of the coming to the end of the sexual revolution. I had a whole other experience. So, sexual revolution or whatever. But all right, let's get into this. Hardbodies is the first movie we're going to talk about tonight, which is a 1984 American sex comedy film about three middle-aged men who hire a younger man to help him pick up women at the beach. The film was directed by Mark Griffiths, who you might know from a whole lot of movies. Most recently, back in 20 something. Well, the 2015 he did something called The Novel Romance, which doesn't have a hyperlink. But some other ones that do. We've got Love's Unending Legacy in 2007, Our House in 2006. Beethoven's Fifth. You've heard of the dog movies. Remember the dog movies?
Oh, yeah.
Beethoven's Fifth was 2003. He Behind Enemy Lines, as a matter of fact.
But not the one you're thinking of.
But not the one I'm thinking of. Yeah. Not even close.
No, I saw that and was like, oh, cool. Oh, wait, no.
Yeah. There's actually a sequel to this called Hardbodies too, which has nothing to do with anything. So that's him. And it stars Grant Kramer, Courtney Gaines, and Gary Wood. If you don't know who any of these people are, that's great. No one does. It was partly financed by Roger Corman. And if you don't know who Roger Corman is, he made all your favorite B movies back in the day. Fantastic stuff.
If you've seen a Vincent Price movie, more than likely you know who Roger Corman is, or at least seen his name pop up as directed by.
Yes. And it features Roberta Collins in a supporting role. So the plot of this thing, if one could call it that, as I said, three divorced middle-aged men rent a beach house in Malibu, where all the good beach houses are, to relive their youth and score. We're going to score. We're going to score tonight. Come on, sing it with me, Dorian. We're going to score tonight. Grease 2 is awful. But quickly realized
that's why I couldn't sing with you, because I was like, I know I can't. I'm sorry. Michelle Pfeiffer's the only thing out of that movie I remember.
Someday I'm going to do a Long Road to Ruin just so I can talk about both Grease and Grease 2. I'm going to have you there, and it'll be exactly what you think it is. It'll be a hostage taking situation.
Right. It's like
just you, Shay, Mick, Robert, and just the whole Pat, everybody just be on like, none of us want to be here. Like, and there's gonna be me in the center with a party hat on, going, "It's my 50th birthday. This is what we're doing."
You signed up. It's like every time you've told someone new they've come on here, like maybe for like the second or third time, it's like, we haven't run you off yet. That was the warning. That was your time to hit the door, but you didn't. So now you're stuck here reviewing Grease 2. This is on you.
Now we all now for a rousing chorus of I want a cool rider.
Oh yeah,
cool rider. If he's cool enough, then he'll burn me through and through. I want a rider. That's cool. They hire Scotty, a slick-talking local ladies' man, to teach them the art of picking up hard bodies. As the trio struggles to keep up with the party lifestyle, things take a turn when Scotty's own love interest, Kimberly, is pursued by one of the older men, like you do. The story climaxes with Scotty reclaiming his self-respect and getting the girl, while the old guys are forced to admit they can't buy youth or love with money or tricks. I will ask you first, and then I will give a concerted craft review. What did you think of Hardbodies, Dorian?
It was fun. Like, it felt like a movie that literally would have been like a made-for-TV. Like, honestly, as I was watching it, I was like, if you took out all the comedy, or like some of the comedy, and all the raunchy stuff, and twisted it about 2 inches this way, it's a Lifetime movie.
Yeah.
It's like right there. It's like maybe if I don't know when Lifetime Channel started, but maybe some young producer was going, okay, what if we did this just without all the sex?
It's like, let's take the testosterone out of this and problematic elements, and just do a meditation on sex and aging.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, but no, it was again, I didn't recognize any of the actors, and I felt bad because like I went through. There was one that had been in something else that I saw, but I hadn't remembered like their character because I was like getting on IMDb going, I've got to have seen you in guys in something else. Nope. Nope.
No sirree, Bob.
And the film had strains of like Weekend at Bernie's, a little bit of The Hangover. I kind of felt in there too, and that's what made it fun. From the very start, once I was obviously he's kicked out of his apartment. He hooks up with the I shouldn't say hook up in this case. he joins forces with the guys. What's in the minute they introduced Christy, who's going to be our love interest. What's going to happen. You're going to redeem yourself, all Darth Vader style, and everything's going to end happily, and we'll all learn a lesson and go home. But until then, let's have some fun. So again, overall, I don't know if I'd go and watch it again, but if okay, I'll say this: I wouldn't seek it out. But if I had a whole bunch of friends over and we were just talking and like getting drunk and chilling, I might be like, okay, guys, you gotta watch this. And not from the point of view of if I must suffer, humanity must suffer with me, but more from the point of view of it's a fun movie. It was during the heyday of like the sex comedy, as you were pointing out, and it's like you said, a time capsule in history. So it was kind of cool to see this drenched in the 80s. Especially now with stuff like Stranger Things, where they try to be like, yes, we're 80s, but we're not shoving it down your throat. This was just dead set, in the 80s, so it's just drenched with it.
Yeah, it was a window into that period of time because it was in that period of time.
Exactly.
It was contemporary. You know what I like about Hardbodies? First, this is not a great movie. This was also not what I had never actually seen it. Like I said, I am aware of the raunchy 80s sex comedy hardbody movies because I lived them. I rented them. It was a big part of my youth, but I never saw this one, and so this was kind of that term rang out to me, and when I was researching this genre for a future show, this was a couple of years ago. This came up, and I'm like, oh, they actually made a Hardbodies movie from the hardbody genre. Well, that's a must watch, and lo, these many years later, here we are. It is cheaply made. It feels every bit of its very low budget. I think the budget was less than $2 million. But Jesus Christ, Dorian, you could make this movie,
right?
Less than $2 million or $1 million. It literally is what it says in the budget line.
Yeah,
it made 7.1 in the box office,
so it made its money back.
Yeah.
So, and from the point of view of a production company, which is probably why I got a second one, it's like, fuck yeah, we made our money back. Sweet.
Yeah. Again, there was this may come as a shock to people, but people used to go to the movies to be entertained. And they're more seriously, the regional drive-in experience is now lost on us because nothing is regional anymore. The internet pretty much destroyed anything that was ever regional, and definitely post-COVID streaming wars, that was the end of that. But back in the day, there used to be regional drive-in circuits, and so like you would get a movie that was passed around drive-ins in, like, let's say the Mid-Atlantic area, or just in one single state alone, and it didn't really get out of that state, things like that. So like something like Hardbodies would be a movie that you might catch at the drive-in. And what appeal that this has. Teenagers would go see it because they see themselves there. This is about them. There's sexy girls in there, so there's something for the guys. There's hot-looking men, with bodies. There's something for the ladies. It was a good date night movie. I mean, I can see why this has wide appeal despite the adult content. That being said, it's the other thing about it, and I think this is important to talk about, is how weirdly relatable it actually is. Because if you strip away sort of the veneer of contemporary 80s aesthetic and you strip away there was a lot less raunch in this sex comedy than I thought there'd be.
Oh yeah, no, I was kind of shocked.
Yeah, like this is almost tame by by comparison to some of the other stuff I've seen.
Right, like case in point, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Caddyshack, any of those.
Well, I like Revenge of the Nerds features a sexual assault. It wasn't called it at the time, but
that was called a joke, and now we look at it and go,
"Oh, you're not the person I thought I was banging." Ha ha.
That's hilarious. This will age well.
Yeah, no, we won't look back at that and go, "Yeesh."
Yeah.
But like Porky's or Revenge of the Nerds are definitely more raunchy and problematic than Hardbodies ever was.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea of like you're a guy and it's funny. I watch a lot of TikToks and they say this sort of thing now where if you're a guy, don't worry about dating right now. Get your career, get your money, get your stuff. And when you're established and you're the king of your world, then date. You'll be better off for it. And that's kind of what these guys do. Like, if you think about like their story, they're all fairly rich fellas, but they've focused so much on themselves and their careers and acquiring a life filled with stuff. They don't know how to relate to girls.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the young ne'er-do-well comes in. Because when we meet him, he's a slob. He's living in, he's evicted from his apartment, which is overrun with, roaches that in the next movie will try to conquer the earth. That fridge scene rivals the bathroom scene in Desperado for grossness.
Right.
Which they make, it's purposely gross. It's to upset the woman that's in that scene.
Yeah.
But, it's like, so here's this kid who is super relatable, in terms of, women. He is Robert Downey Jr.'s character from The Pickup Artist. This guy's superpower is he knows how to get with women. It helps that he's blonde and good looking, but that's what he does. He's charismatic. He knows how to talk to the ladies. What he doesn't know how to do is anything else. And so he pairs up with this group of guys who they're all thumbs when it comes to talking to women. And so they work together and then, the plot unfolds. And I think that today in the year of our Lord 2025, that's kind of a fun story. Because I think it is relatable. I think there are a lot of guys that would relate to the idea of I really don't know how to talk to women. I know how to talk to other guys. I know how to earn a living. I know how to do that kind of thing. But I really don't know what it is I'm supposed to do besides flash cash around to attract women. And when I flash cash around, the only thing I'm going to attract is somebody who wants money.
Yeah.
If I'm looking for a partner, I don't know how to do that. And that is kind of when you crack the hard surface of Hardbodies, no pun intended.
You're right.
What is going on at the heart of this thing, which I thought was kind of sweet. Now, is the movie all kinds of dopey? Sure. Is there good acting in this? No. This is the worst. But I'm here to find the treasure in the trash can. And I think there's a lot of surface level nonsense and, shiny things covering what is, I think, a very relatable story.
And I would definitely agree. Like I could see someone trying to redo this movie in a different way today.
Yeah.
Because there is real relatability to it in the world that we live in. But as we talked about with No Hard Feelings, it's like, is there an audience for that? If you take away the somewhat raunchy sex comedy of the 80s kind of recipe, does that harm the final product? And I think that'd be the question that, someone have to look at if they were redoing this. But that being said, the storyline itself is very, I know a lot of people who are, in their late 20s, early 30s, or even, early 40s that are like, hey, I always wanted to get married, but like I was focusing on my job. And, they end up kind of being this lost in the sea of, I don't know how to do this anymore. also with the onset of homeschooling, you have people who never, really learned how to
Socialize with the
socialize.
opposite gender or
Yeah.
anyone, or anyone for that matter.
Yeah. So it's like these guys, yeah, definitely felt, relatable. Even being older than me was like, no, dude, I feel you. I feel where you coming from, but
Yeah.
but I was gonna say, and last but not least, our lead is very relatable too, because like a lot of my generation still trying to figure stuff out. So we are kind of bouncing between, we're couch surfing, or we're really great at this, but everything else in our lives is kind of crap,
Mhm.
So again, the whole point being they're all very, very relatable, and that makes, even though the acting's horrible, it does make the characters at least enjoyable to watch.
It's a very human film, which is a weird thing to say about a raunchy sex comedy from the 80s, which you might think is the flimsiest of things. But I think that's why I like doing this show in particular, Triple Feature, because it forces me and whatever hostage I've taken for the night to look at some of these and go, are we dismissing this out of hand because of the genre that it's in, or is there something here worth talking about?
Absolutely. And I think there are things in all three of these worth talking about. Again, they're not going to be, you're not going to pull out the American Film Institute's list of greatest movies from each genre and say, Hardbodies, Spring Break, have you seen those?
Yeah, it's just right after the Shawshank Redemption.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'll tell you, Jason and I have done a lot of triple features together, and when I find in the Wikipedia page that this is in the National Film Institute, he's always like, "Why? How did this make it in there?" It's a wide berth. All right, if you got nothing else on Hardbodies, I will just say the following. This has got on Metacritic a score of 1 out of 100 based on reviews from 4 critics. Overwhelming dislike. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say they didn't get it.
No.
Go ahead.
No, I was saying no, and it's that's one of the things with critics, and again, all three of these movies kind of deal with this, is that I think, and we will obviously get more into it as we go forward, I think there is a very big disconnect between becoming responsible and getting old.
Yeah.
Now, there's a Doctor Who line, growing old is inevitable, but growing up is optional. And I think that's something that even to this day we kind of miss out on. It's like, no, you're 50 now, so start acting like it. Why? I pay my bills, I pay my taxes, I have a house, I have a car. Why the fuck does it matter?
So, last note I'm going to share, and then I'm moving into the next thing. The film was based on an article in Penthouse. For you kids, that used to be a nudie magazine. It's what the internet used to be on waxy paper. An initial plan to sell the film for broadcast on the Playboy channel. Playboy used to be
a nudie magazine.
It was the internet when it was on paper. Fell through. I like doing this with you, Dorian. You're fun. When, according to Bagoon, the network found it too soft. Instead, Columbia picked it up for theatrical distribution. The movie is notable for an early appearance of the all-female rock band Vixen, then featuring Steve Vai's wife, Pia. On the soundtrack and on-screen is the band Diaper Rash. 5 years before Vixen released their gold-selling debut album and toured the world with the likes of the Scorpions and Deep Purple. All right, next we've got Spring Break, which is a 1983 American sex comedy film directed and produced by Sean S. Cunningham. And if you don't know who Sean S. Cunningham is, well, you should, because he's made a lot of movies. He directed and produced Friday the 13th back in 1980. Hey, you remember that movie, don't you, Dorian?
Yeah, that one I got.
Oh, good. He produced House and House 2, the second story. Do you get it? Do you get it? He also produced Jason Goes to Hell, so you can blame him for that. He, and my kids love this one, he was the producer for Jason X.
Yes.
And the producer for Freddy vs. Jason. And he was the monster that created the 2009 Friday the 13th. He also was the producer of Last House on the Left. And the last thing he worked on as a director was The Nurse with the Purple Hair, which I think is one of my coworkers.
I think I know that girl.
Yeah. We all know that girl. All right. It stars David Nell, Perry Lang, Paul Land, and Steve Bassett. The film follows two sets of two college guys spending a spring break together in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. This was made on a budget of $4.5 million. It made $24 million. So this was a rousing hit.
Oh God!
In terms of box office, like you wonder why they kept making these movies, because people liked them and they made money. God forbid we should just enjoy something that's silly.
Right.
So any before I go and get into the plot synopsis really quick, this is the first time you'd seen Spring Break?
Yes.
I think is what you said earlier. Okay.
Yeah.
What was your viewing experience? Like, don't get into your craft review. I mean, I am curious that you watched this with one of the many babes of Dorian. What was the viewing experience like?
Well, I ended up having to watch them on my own because Mick was working a bunch this week. On the uneasy is the head that wears the crowns, and she's a manager, so there's always more shit going on. This one of the three, and again, obviously I'll get into 10, which was probably my favorite. This one was my definite second favorite because it really felt like that old school, sex comedy. Not that Hardbodies didn't, but this one just had all the stops being pulled out, and it was like a low budget Revenge of the Nerds, kind of feel to it. So it was fun. So yeah, I would say this one is definitely number 2 in my list as well.
I watched these back to back on a Friday night. My girlfriend and I watched them together. She'd never seen them, and she let me pick the movies, and then she regretted it, which is normal. Yeah. And we were watching Spring Break, and she said something to me, and I said, it's as if somebody had experienced Spring Break down in Florida and said, I want to make a movie that shows what it's like to be down here during this time period and what it's like for kids taking a break from college. And then somebody said to him, that sounds great. I can't imagine that wouldn't sell tickets. What's your story? And the guy turned and said, what?
Story.
I just want to show glamour shots of kids partying in Spring Break. Years later, someone will take that formula and create Girls Gone Wild. But I digress. Spring Break, such as it is, college students Nelson and Adam head to Fort Lauderdale for a spring break of sun, fun, and freedom. When a hotel mix-up lands them with wild party boys Stu and OT, the group dives into a whirlwind of girls, beer, and chaos. Things escalate as Nelson, the more reserved of the group, falls for a local girl named Susie, only to discover she's the daughter of a conservative political candidate whose campaign could be derailed by their antics. Despite, at this point, we'd be happy to just not see the conservatives being blown by a guy in a bathroom stall, but I digress. Despite a dramatic confrontation, the group ultimately wins over Susie's father, and Nelson and Susie share a romantic, triumphant ending as the guys head home, forever changed by the wildest spring break of their lives. Torian, have you ever seen a cannonball contest take as long as this one does?
No. Even Cannonball Run felt shorter.
I have seen the cannonball sequence in The Patriot, starring Mel Gibson, was shorter than that cannonball scene. Good God.
Is this ending anytime? Is this the rest of the movie? Should it just be called Cannonball Break? Because
I was gonna say, and then the fat one dies and movie is over. Is this what we're doing here? Oh, God.
I was it is Weekend at Bernie's. Okay.
Was the editor getting blown in a bathroom stall by a conservative Republican during the editing process?
The editor was actually Sean Cunningham's wife, so I would hope not. Because that might make a more interesting movie of what happened behind the scenes of Spring Break.
That would make a more interesting movie. It's Jesus Christ. I understand that in the year of our Lord 2025, quick cuts and rapid fire machine gun editing is the norm, and we want to go back to the days where the camera stayed still, Dorian, don't you understand? The camera would just shoot you like a gun and stay on you while you emoted because you are an actor. But for God's sakes, that cannonball scene went on for an hour and a half.
It's like, okay, the camera can move a little bit. It's okay.
Maybe show a reaction shot or two. You
Nope.
know, a girl, maybe as the fat one goes into the pool, we pull away and we see a girl. She's talking with her friends. Oh, isn't life wonderful? Florida's great. And she gets hit with water. Yeah.
I kept expecting that, and I'm like, wow, you hand built that shot.
He goes up again. That's the thing. He went up again. Like this, they went for round 2 of this thing. Like, I was starting to think this cannonball contest was the plot of this movie.
Right. Which again, I would have watched.
What?
Like literally, have Burt Reynolds show up and just kind of like wink at the camera and leave, and it'd be like, okay, so I see what's up. I see what's up. No, you cool.
We end with Dom DeLuise in his him costume.
Yes.
He dives off while making food in a bowl or something.
Right.
Dom DeLuise jokes don't really sell in 2025, do they? No one knows who the fuck I'm talking about.
Yeah, I'm weird in that case. Really old parents, so you know
I'm glad you got it.
You've got a friend in me on that one, but not the rest of the shit.
Go ahead. When this is over, kids, go look up Dom DeLuise. Anyway, so Spring Break is a fun concept, and it's funny because like the jock character in this, like the big muscly tough guy, I kept waiting for him to be stupid, and he's kind of not. It was weird. Like they really went against type with his character. And I thought there would be more friction between the 4, but there kind of isn't. They're just like it's kind of an odd couple of we have like the studious Ivy League kids, and then we have the ne'er-do-wells who have been, working hard to save money for this one trip of a lifetime, and they are stuck together. And you would think like that would be the central conflict is how do this odd couple pair of kids get along amidst the chaos and debauchery of Spring Break in Fort Lauderdale? And nope, they're just friends. They get along. The most tension I saw was the bathroom scene where they're all trying to shave and shit at the same time.
Right.
That was the most tension in the movie.
Although I will say it's funny, considering how the end of this movie goes, that this isn't the Blake Edwards one. Considering the beer and whipped cream fight in the first place, which is very similar to his great pie fight in Great Race, it's still shocking that 10 is the Blake Edwards movie and not this.
So yeah, if they didn't do the bit with the hotel trying to be, bought by the evil land developer, because there's always an evil land developer. All land developers are evil. That's how that goes. And you didn't have the bit with the conservative dad. There really is nothing else to this movie. This clocked in at 102 minutes, and it's probably 12 minutes too long. Like Hardbodies was 88 minutes.
Right. It didn't even crack 90, and
I'm wondering if the first cut of this was like way under 90 minutes, and they were like, you gotta beef this up. So they just threw in an unedited shot of that fucking cannonball scene. I'm like, well, this will kill 10 minutes.
One of the cinematographer or the camera operators went off on a smoke break and forgot to turn the camera off, and they were like, well, we got it, so might as well use it.
And cut. I said cut. Oh, where'd he go? So what did you think of Spring Break?
I thought it was very fun. The story's a little all over the place. And it did feel to me that maybe this was 3 different stories at one time, that they went a goose. But it hits the tropes very well. Like, again, if someone were to ask me, tell me an 80s raunchy sex comedy that isn't one of the gods, like Porky's or Revenge of the Nerds, I'd go to Spring Break, because again, there's enough in there that really just they hit the tropes as if they were going down a checklist. At first I didn't mind the whole dad who's running for office thing. Because I'm like, oh, is this gonna be one of those stories where like he loosens up and lets his hair down, and at the end he's like dancing with a whole bunch of girls in bikinis, and like
he walked into frame. He's wearing a bathrobe, going, "I'd buy that for $1."
Right. But then that obviously did not happen. But yeah, I just like the hotel being shut down made no sense. I feel like it might have made more sense if it'd been like, hey, this is our last spring break, and we could go into
like the kids do like a fundraiser to save the hotel or something.
Yeah, which I'm like, UHF did it better. If you don't know that movie, check it out. Weird Al made a movie.
Wheel of fish.
Stupid! You're so stupid! But anyways,
you get the fire hose. Yay!
Yeah, before that actor became also problematic. Anyways, moving forward.
Time is a cruel mistress.
It is a very gravity thou art a cruel bitch. But no, like I didn't hate this one. I thought it was fun. Like again, if it was on TV and I was just watching something stupid, this is a great movie. And again, if you're out there and you're Mr. Radlich's age or somewhere between he and I's age, and you're like, I didn't get to watch a lot of 80s sex comedies. Obviously, go see the greats like Caddyshack, Porky's, all those. But this one's fun and stupid and got all the teen A that you need.
Also, not as raunchy as I thought it would be, though.
True, but I think like it seemed like they were worried they'd go too far, which is funny because Hardbodies, according to Playboy, did not go hard enough, and this one was like, well, we're gonna push. Okay, so we felt resistance. We felt resistance, and pulled back. Again,
it
none of the
kind of does our definition of raunchy sex comedy is tits. Like when one says raunchy sex comedy, I assume there's gonna be sex. I mean,
right?
You don't have to full on first person point of view. What was it you said about Hot Frosty? And he would not survive the hot, wet vagina. He would melt. You understand? That's how physics work.
Which I was pumped for. Like, if that's how the movie had ended for Hot Frosty, I would have been so happy. Like,
she's just laying in two distinctly different puddles.
Yeah, it's like, well, crap.
I couldn't get out of the bed. Hot Frosty.
Right. Fuck your happiness and fuck your Christmas movie.
Or even worse, she's in two distinctly different puddles, and then the heater doesn't work, so she's frozen in it.
And then they turn her into a snowman, and then they're together forever. So they see they're still happy ending.
There you go. More ways than one. Hang on.
Box clever, you say. But you earned that one.
Thank you.
But yeah, no. Overall, this one was fun. I really again wish they just focused more on the kids doing spring break. And if they were going to do the hotel thing, they could have made it like a cool, hey, we've been coming for spring break here the last 3 years. This is our last year, and they're going to destroy this hotel. No, they can't destroy this hotel.
Yeah.
We will fight for it.
I'll tell you. I can see why you like it, and I don't want to shit all over this movie. I don't think it deserves to be shit on. But I do think it's imperfect in very obvious ways. One of those things is it lacked any kind of dramatic tension.
It really did. There were moments that started setting it up. Like, honestly, Nelson and Susie's relationship, though still fun, is like there were so many moments that could have worked better and been a very important moments and dramatic tension. Because again, I know I keep bringing it up, but Caddyshack has dramatic tension. Like, come on, guys, you can do the raunchy sex comedy without, trying to just be slapstick the entire time. But yeah, no, it isn't perfect in that way. And again, I'm not sitting here going, this is the Lawrence of Arabia of smutty sex comedies. Like,
I was thinking about like Porky's, the boys are always trying to get a look-see or get in the pants of, some high school girl, and there's always the gym teacher there to cockblock, or Porky himself, the strip club owner, or there's always something that is preventing them from attaining their goal of touching a boob.
Right.
This is really all Porky's is about, by the way. We are
There
here
you
to
go.
touch boobs. So well, here are your obstacles in the way of such boobs, and voila.
And you must overcome them as the 12 trials of Hercules.
Yes.
Um,
And there isn't anything like this in this movie, and there should have been.
there really, yeah. I mean, like I said, it's fun, but it's
Mhm.
not anything that you're gonna write home about. Like, you'll forget about it in 2 weeks.
I was going to say, if you want another comparison, a kind of silly one, I don't know if you've ever been to Epcot, but
Not yet.
in the Mexico country on the World Showcase, there's a boat ride, and the characters in the boat ride are the three caballeros. It's Donald
Oh, cool,
Duck,
yeah.
the Poncho, I believe, is one of them, and I don't know, Louis. Anyway,
Donald Duck's one of them.
yes, the most important one.
Right.
That has about the same plot as Spring Break.
Yeah.
You know, you just kind of, there's a loose plot of Donald being beat, enjoying the sights of Mexico and being slightly beat up along the way.
Right.
That's kind of Spring Break. Look, here's Fort Lauderdale. Here's this in Fort Lauderdale. Here's that in Fort Lauderdale. And we sprinkle in, and we sprinkle in some stuff here that kind of resembles a plot if you squint closely enough.
Right.
But yes, it is fun. It is light. It is, not nearly as raunchy as I thought it was going to be. But, for sort of lighthearted, adult nudie comedy fare,
It's
Spring
fine.
Break is mostly harmless.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I'd say that was my second favorite. Hardbodies, sadly, coming into third, but
Sure. Well, let's talk about a real movie now.
oh god, yes, we have to.
If I had not seen 10, I knew of 10 because you couldn't get away from the Bo Derek running on the sand posters back when I was a kid. This was everywhere. Like, it's one of those movies that it is summed up in a single picture. It's kind of, Superman flying through the sky. It is, Batman falling from a building. It is the Ghostbusters with the proton packs. Bo Derek running on the sand, the boobs flapping in the breeze is all I think most people, if they knew what 10 was, it's what they remember from 10. And that picture of her, I mean, you can see it in the background there, of her on the beach. That poster was in all the VHS stores. It was everywhere. This is the movie that makes Bo Derek, and that image is what makes the movie. I had actually never seen it though. I think my dad might have owned a copy of 10, but it was also, as I talked about, my dad would tape a lot of movies off of HBO or wherever else he was taping things, and so there was 2 movies usually per blank VHS cassette. And I remember 10 being on one of them, but I think the other side of it was Star Wars, and I would just stop watching after Star Wars. Something along those lines. So when I was doing research for this, I was like, okay, we got to talk about 10 because I think, 10, while it precedes the 8 raunchy 86 comedy, I think in a lot of ways informed that kind of filmmaking because everyone watches Bo Derek run on the beach and goes, hey, you know what brings people to the theater? You know what's an event? You know what's a draw? Girls with bouncing tits on beach.
Right? Let's just be simple about this.
Yeah, let's not overthink this. And so, a genre is born. So what exactly is 10? 10 is a 1979 romantic comedy written, produced, and directed by Blake Edwards, as was mentioned earlier. And if you don't know who Blake Edwards is, you really should. The man is quite the legend. Notable things he's written and or directed are going back to 1963, The Pink Panther, as you mentioned before, The Great Race. He did the Pink Panther, Return of the Pink Panther, and The Pink Panther Strikes Again. He actually wrote, directed, and produced those. The aforementioned 10, Victor, Victoria, for those of you who are into that sort of thing. More Pink Panther movies. Mickey and Maude, for those of you that are in that sort of thing. Blind Date, from 1987, and this is towards the end of his career. By the way, have you ever seen Blind Date with Bruce Willis?
I have not yet.
Dorian, we must talk about Blind Date one of these days. It is, I know everyone knows John Larroquette from Night Court, and maybe the kids today, they know him more from, wherever he showed up in the last sitcom. They don't know him quite as well. Dude.
Well, he's on Night Court again because Night Court's back.
Yeah. His character in Blind Date is fucking hilarious. When towards the end of the movie, he's like about had it with Bruce Willis. He's like, "I'm going to kill you," and he's trying to kill him with the car. Oh my god, Blind Date is great. We all know Bruce Willis from like the Die Hard movies, and he's one of cinema's great action stars. But once upon a time, Bruce Willis used to do comedy, and he was quite funny.
Before he got into Die Hard, he was on that show Moonlighting.
Yes.
But another great, and it's again not a great movie, and I know it's not what we're talking about, but just kind of talking about the fact that Bruce Willis was a fantastic comedic actor. If you've never seen Death Becomes Her, go watch it. It's hilarious.
Towards the end, he did Sunset, Skin Deep, Switch, and then he finally ended with The Son of the Pink Panther. Television in 1992, he directed a sitcom called Julie. He also worked on The Dick Powell Show. Studio 57, The Mickey Rooney Show, etc., etc. So that's Blake Edwards. It stars Dudley Moore, Julie Andrews. You know who Julie Andrews is. She was in The Sound of Fucking Music. For God's sakes, what are we doing here?
Princess Diaries, not Princess Bride. Sorry.
Yes. Julie. Also Mary Poppins, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, Mary Poppins is also, since we were talking about Blake Edwards' filmography, she was one of the leads in Victor Victoria.
I am right. She was in The Sound of Music, wasn't she?
Yes, she's the lead in that. You are correct.
Yes. She was
I would
spinning around going, "The hills are alive" with The Sound of Music. Yes, so she's that. She's Mary Poppins. You know Julie Edwards, whether or not you know that you know Julie Andrews.
She was actually also the singing octopus in the Aquaman movie. So, there's that.
Perfect. What a way to end your career. We have Robert Webber and the aforementioned beautiful, vivacious, I can't speak. Beautiful, vivacious, dreamy even, Bo Derek. It was considered a trend-setting film at the time of its release and became one of the year's biggest box office hits. The film follows a middle-aged man who becomes infatuated with a young woman who he's never met, leading to a comic chase and an encounter in Mexico. A little ways back, you, me, and Comer did The Woman in Red, and I couldn't help but think that, like, in retrospect, what a template movie this is.
Mm-hmm.
Of the middle-aged guy, because we talked about this when we talked about The Woman in Red, American Beauty. There is definitely a thing in film that we can't quite get away from because we keep doing it, where the middle-aged man gets to middle age and goes, "What is life?" and decides that, the key to happiness is a young broad that he's obsessing over. Sometimes an adolescent young broad, unfortunately. Yeah. But it is definitely a thing we keep doing. And I'm wondering how much of that was because of the success of 10. Also because it's highly relatable, but also the success of 10.
I would definitely agree that it is. It said trend setting, but I'm going to use your term. It is a template, and pretty awesome template. This movie again. It's the only one of these three to get nominated for Oscars.
Yes.
So,
as a matter of fact, since we talked about it, was nominated for Best Original Score, Henry Mancini. Best Original Song, It's Easy to Say, by music by Henry Mancini, lyrics by Robert Wells. It was nominated for a bunch of Golden Globes, not the least of which was Best Musical or Comedy, Best Actor in a Motion Picture, Best Musical or Comedy, Best Actress in a Motion Picture, Best Musical or Comedy, Best Original Score, and New Star of the Year, fucking Bo Derek.
Right.
It is
did not win any of those, though.
Has not won a single thing. But it was nominated for a whole bunch, and sometimes it's just good to be nominated.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, it was also named. Where is it? Oh, yeah. The New York Times included it on the film on its best 1,000 movies ever list from 2003, and I would agree with that. Had a budget of about $6 million. It made 107. So a wild success for a studio that used to make good movies, Warner Brothers. Comes in at a little over 2 hours. Does not feel its length. So you had never. What was your viewing experience like for 10? I know you said you'd never seen it before.
Yeah, no, this was really good. Again, it definitely felt like Blake Edwards. It had a lot of that slapstick that not only Blake Edwards is known for throughout the Pink Panther movies, but also Dudley Moore was kind of known for, mostly for Arthur. But, Dudley was a very...
If you kids are looking for kind of an analog that you might have actually heard of, what's his face with the turkey on his head?
Oh, shit, yeah. It's gone. It's there. I'll find it.
But British actor with turkey on head, Dudley Moore was before him.
But yeah, no, it's definitely... It definitely falls into that Rowan Atkinson. Duh. Sorry.
That's the one, yes.
So yeah, very much that. And the slapstick really works well with this while still allowing it to be a dramatic film, still with comedy as well. But as we pointed out with the last two movies, there's dramatic tension. There's quiet moments. It's not, Dudley Moore for, almost 2 hours falling down everything. Now, he does fall down a lot, but not, so much that it's like, okay, this is a Mr. Bean sketch that never got...
The dentist sequence is agonizingly stupid.
Right, yeah, well, they can't all be gold.
This is a great movie. This is a big recommend. Fast forward through everything having to do with the dentist.
Yeah, when you see the dentist walk in, just...
Yeah, until he's done doing that sort of thing. But I will tell you this. I'm so used to Brian Dennehy being a heavy, being his character from First Blood. Seeing him as an affable bartender and being sympathetic to Dudley Moore's plight. Outstanding. Good for Brian Dennehy.
And Denny's a great actor anyways. It's just, he got... I think a lot of actors get stuck in a situation because they're in a big movie like First Blood was, and that just kind of becomes who they are.
Did you ever see Patton Oswalt's bit on character actors and meeting Brian Dennehy?
Yeah, character actors. Who gives a damn if we're fat?
Who gives a fuck if we're fat? And just shoving fucking food.
Because my willpower is nothing.
All right, so let me get into the plot of this. Wealthy and neurotic George Weber, who is Dudley Moore, spirals into a full-blown midlife crisis after spotting a stunningly beautiful woman, Jenny, who is played by Bo Derek, on her way to her wedding. Obsessed with youth and beauty, George abandons his girlfriend and follows Jenny to Mexico, where he improbably seduces her. However, he finds the experience emotionally hollow and unsatisfying. Haven't we all been there, brothers? Realizing that the fantasy didn't live up to the dream, again I say, and that he's been pushing away someone who truly cared for him. George returns home humbled and introspective. He reconciles with his girlfriend, who is played by Julie Andrews, and begins to accept aging and intimacy over illusion and vanity. I fucking love this movie. This was fantastic.
Oh yeah.
I gotta say, before I get into all the good things about it, if you're like, I'm gonna watch 10 and see hot ass Bo Derek run for 2 hours on a beach. No, the fuck you're not. The fact that Bo Derek is on the poster in his third build is a lie. That shit doesn't happen until way in the second half of the movie and really close to the third act.
No, again,
the entirety of the third act.
If you're wanting, and I think it's ironic because this movie is her breakout role.
Yeah.
You want movies where she's naked and running around and there's sex and all that jazz. Watch anything that her husband had her in, who was also a much older man. And I forgot his name, John Derek. Of course, yeah, Bo Derek. Anything he did, she's naked, they're having sex. There's even a movie, one of the last ones John Derek directed, which was about this much older man who had married this much younger woman and comes back as a ghost. And it's, if you want Bo Derek nude, you're going to have to go that direction. But for the point of this film, it is still done very, very well. And actually pretty tastefully, I'd say, too. All things considered.
Let me tell you, before because the third act where they finally hook up and the shit Bo Derek says to Dudley Moore is its own conversation. And I want to get to it eventually. So let's talk about the first, hour and a half of this movie. Julie Andrews is great in this, and the conversation they have at the beginning where he's checked out and watching the Late Show, and she's on the bed, and they are debating the use of the word broad. This is every great conversation with a partner I've ever had in the times that I've had great conversations with a partner. I absolutely love that, because there's a couple of, my God, subtext is dead, but here it's very much alive. And what you have is a very distant, cold, unfulfilled, listless Dudley Moore. And he's sitting in bed, and he has this woman who does not live with him. It's his girlfriend. And, they are going to talk and be intimate and have sex, and that is what they do. And he could not be less interested.
Right.
Sex at this point with her is almost like a transactional experience. And he, because the movie picks up and it says 48th birthday or something like that.
Yeah, 42nd.
Yeah. And he's like, I don't want to be old. There's a lot of time spent in the beginning of this movie with him talking about what is life. What am I supposed to do now that I'm old? And he has a gay best friend, not that kind of gay best friend, like an actual person.
Right. When they still wrote the character instead of just being like, again, a Patton Oswalt joke of, Chardonnay stats.
Yes. The gay best friend. That.
Absolutely.
So here we have a best friend who just happens to be gay, and he's like, "What are you moping around my fucking house for? Why are you so sad? You have friends, you have a successful career, you have stuff, you have money, you have everything that every other person on earth wants, and works for, and is envious of, and you have it. Why aren't you grateful for the gifts God has bestowed upon you?" And Dudley Moore does the Jack Nicholson thing of, is this as good as it gets? And so we go back to the conversation he has with Julie Andrews in the bed, where he refers to somebody as broad, and now she's like, okay, this is an invitation for me to pinch and tickle you. This is an opportunity for us to have some banter. We are intellectuals. We are moneyed people. We are thinkers. And so we can converse, and the converse is the foreplay. And Dudley Moore immediately turns into an ice cube. And eventually he just flat out insults the woman. It says something to the effect of, I would be more turned on to you if you were less like a man. And she's like, well, to you and the horse you rode in on, fuck you.
And excuse me, stepping in from 40 some odd years into the almost 50 years into the future. That's Julie Andrews, and you take that back. Now.
Yeah.
Or I will come from the past and fuck her right now.
Well, he doesn't want to be challenged. Not by her, at least. He does at this point, because she represents the age that he is. He's in conflict with himself, and everything that represents the reality of his situation, that he is over 40, he is rejecting. So at that point, everything that comes out of her mouth is poison, and everything about her is terrible. And Julie Andrews, as her defense attorney, is like, I have done nothing wrong. I exist. I am a potato. And meanwhile, you're taking out, the wrong that has befallen you, that is age, as if God only did it to you on me, you bastard. And she promptly leaves him. And my favorite part of that entire scene is, well, aren't we going to have sex? Hey, fuck you, you fucking fuck. Now let's get going here. And while that works on some women and men, didn't for God bless a Princess Julie Andrews. She storms off into the night.
As well she should have.
Yeah, that is all the good shit ever, Dorian. Speak on it.
Oh yeah, no, it's something that all of us look at, especially my generation, who age is really pushed on us. And I know we keep quoting Patton Oswalt, but I'll quote him one last time. Of the people of Dudley Moore and Julie Andrews' generation, and I understand Dudley Moore died at, sadly, the very young age of 66. But as Patton Oswalt said, there was a time that once you hit 50, let's get you ready to die. Because the game's over.
It's your cake full of meds.
right? And, go to sleep. But life has changed so much over the years, not only because of medical stuff, but, I was hearing the joke the other day is like, 40 is the new 30, 30 is the new 20, 20 is the new 10. And I'm like, that's not, you should just really stop after 30 because you're going to keep going backwards. Then you're making everything weird. So it's, life does change, but like one of the things of these movies that are interesting to look at is and yeah, you just said it, the inability of these people to go, you are a composer in this case. You were like top of your class, again, women are probably still falling at your feet anyways. Who cares if you're 40, and yet you are in this spiral, which again is pretty par for the course with movies like this, because it's like, okay, midlife crisis, you're 40, so let's either go get the tattoo, get the hot car, get the hot young girl, or all three if you decide to be that you want to, be an overachiever. And this movie, I think, handles it really well because it's like, okay, the game's not over, man. It's not like you're 80 and you're 40. This is also seen as the prime of life. Shut the fuck up, go to a party, and have fun. Stop going, oh, whoa. But yes, I was very glad that Julie Andrews stormed out into the night on him. And yeah, it's their conversation is great. It kind of shocked me because normally with movies like this, they don't make the characters that unlikable that quickly. We usually hit that about the midway point and they'll do something really stupid. But we as an audience will look at it and go, okay, they're frustrated. They're still a shit. But, this started off the game like, yeah, you're probably not going to like this guy that much, but stay with us. It does get better.
Well, I think that's why as much as I don't like the dentist scene and it feels like a baby that needed to have been killed, I can kind of see now that we're talking about it, the reason why it's there, because you'll root for Dudley more if we torture him. And that scene is all about torturing him.
As the great Mick Wanamaker would say, some babies you just got to throw out.
There are two different scenes with the gay best friend at his house where Dudley Moore is composing. That's why he's there. And in the first one, the gay best friend is sympathetic. He's like, I don't like to see you hurt like this. What are you hurting about? Well, I don't like being old. I want to be young. I don't like what life gives you when you're old. He was like, oh, that's a shitty attitude to have, and you should feel better about life. You've been blessed with many gifts that most people in their life will never have. The second time around, he's completely lost patience with Dudley Moore.
Oh yeah, I actually love that scene a little bit more than the first one, because again, he's trying to be sympathetic to his friend, but yeah, by the time we get to the second one, it's like, dude, I have, like, you almost feel like the first conversation has been one of like 19, but this was the 19th conversation. It's like, all right, it's still 19, but we haven't crossed 2-0, and the next one is that's 20 conversations. I'm done. I'm no.
It's good shit, and again, what's the actor's name? Robert Weber. Robert Weber. He's so good in this movie. Like, again, because we think that gender preference or sexuality is a character trait. It's not. He's just a guy. He's a guy with a bit of wisdom, and he's trying to help his friend. And that's all that's happening in that scene. The fact that he's gay is not the point. It'll come up later, and that is definitely something I want to talk to you about really quick. But it's not important in their interactions, which is different than the way we write non-hetero people now in movies, which is unfortunate. Yeah, it was back when writing was good in the movies. Just Dorian, remember those days? Petrick Farm remembers. Anyway, so the movie, I love this movie. I think it's just the right length. It is structured really weird.
It really is.
Because because the first act is establishing that Dudley Moore is depressed. The second act is all over the fucking place.
Yeah.
Like, there's the thing with the dentist, him and Julie Andrews, So I'm watching this on a Sunday morning, and my girlfriend's next to me, and I told her after putting her through Hardbodies and Spring Break, I'm like, you do not have to watch this one. I will watch it myself because I'm afraid of what will happen if I make you watch a third movie that you hate. So I'll just watch it alone. And then this happened, Dorian. Remember this fucking sound?
Right.
Kids, that's the sound of a rotary phone. A rotary phone was like a cell phone that was plugged into the wall that you had to twist a dial around that had numbers and finger holes that ripped the skin off your nails.
They're really cool. If you go to an antique shop, you can buy one and seem pretentious by having it in your house.
Yeah.
Or you can paint it red and it can be like the bat phone from the 1960s show, which is also dope. So either way.
There you go. There's about 30 minutes or so of them dialing rotary phones in this movie, and kind of like the cannonball scene in Spring Break.
If you had to pick one, which one do you want to sit through? The unending cannonball pool scene or the rotary dialing?
Dorian, see, I can do this with you because you're not Robert. Dorian, my love, my sweet, my beautiful baby. I was thinking about you when I watched this because I was thinking about your whole thing about like skip the shoelaces.
Mm-hmm. The shoe leather, yeah.
The shoe leather, yeah. I'm watching this going, you couldn't cut this. We had every like Robert Blake is just pants his hand, dick in hand, going, I need every bit of footage of that fucking phone. That phone is fourth billed in this movie. It's above John Webber, below Bo Derek. Like we don't need this. Like ADR fucking clicking noises. I need it. God, that's the only way I could have sex with my wife is by hearing the clicking of a rotary phone. That's how weird it is in this movie.
But hey, at least this one was not edited by someone he was married to. So there's that.
Yeah, there's a lot of Julie Andrews and Dudley Moore dialing rotary phones and missing each other, which is a point of the plot. Is after the fight, they are like, I don't totally hate you, and they keep missing each other. So, like, their relationship is going down the toilet more and more because they can't connect and mend fences.
If only they'd had iPhones, we would have been fine.
Sure.
God.
So now I desperately want to add a rotary phone clicking sound to my cell phone and drive my girlfriend to commit murder.
Probably your own murder, in fact.
That is the idea, yes. So anyway, that second act is all over the goddamn place. You have that bit. You have the fight with the gay best friend. You have Dudley Moore stalking Bo Derek. And again, it reminded me of Gene Wilde and The Woman in Red, where like I don't know if I'll ever be that smitten with any one woman that especially now in 2025, they'll get you with their cell phone and put you on TikTok. But back in the day where that wasn't an option, a man could be a little obsessive about a woman and follow her into her church and be stung by a bee for no good reason,
and smash into a police cruiser.
Yes, and follow her to Mexico and all that good stuff. Yeah, he's a little obsessed with Bo Derek because she's so gosh darn pretty, and he's like, well, pretty babes will make me feel young again. They're the fountain of youth, don't you understand?
Oh yeah.
So there's
totally.
Those sequences. There's the aforementioned dentist sequence. Because now we got to do slapstick.
At least it ain't a rotary phone.
And then he finally goes to Mexico, and the way he tells Julie Andrews, he was like, "Hey, I'm having a midlife crisis, but I'm gonna go to Mexico and sort it all out. I'll see you when I get back." And Julie Andrews like, "The fuck you will, sir." I am. What do you think? I'm some whore that wait around for you? Get fucked. This is what Julie
Get my
Andrews
umbrella
says.
and follow you. I'm Mary Poppins, y'all.
That's right, and beat him to death. So anyway, so then he goes to Mexico, and now you're like, well, we're here. We're finally here. Bo Derek is gonna be bouncy tittied all across the beach sand of Mexico. It's gonna be fantastic. And an hour later, we finally get there.
I got to break in really quick on that.
Yeah, no, please.
It's on the poster and shit like that. The first time I saw that happening was actually with Bo Derek, and this is going to make you very sad, and I'm sorry, so brace yourself. First time I saw a parody of that was actually with Bo Derek in the movie Master of Disguise.
Yeah, all right.
Where she threw back on the bikini and did that. I had no idea what the joke was. I was like, okay, she's running in slow-mo. I don't. Everyone else who's older than me is laughing, and I'm going, I don't see how it's funny. That's like a 43-year-old woman running across.
Where the running on the beach trope came from, it came from 10. And years later they'll do it all gay style with Sylvester Stallone and Apollo Creed.
Oh yeah.
As their tits are bouncing in the breeze on the sandy beach.
But much
Anyway.
firmer.
Yeah. Yes. So anyway, he finally gets to Mexico, and he picks up a woman at the bar when you could do such things. When men used to approach women. And they go back to the room, and they have bad sex or no sex at all because he can't get it up. It happens. So then there's another scene with Brian Dennehy. And then finally, Chris Bailey hooks up with Bo Derek, and they go up and have sex. And I'm going to stop there because I have to talk about their scene entirely from everything that happened up to this point. But Dorian, I'm talking about, and I'm really trying to illustrate how the two problems with this movie are pacing and
Structure.
plot structure. It is weirdly like you could have chopped this up into a television show. That's how weird.
Oh, yeah.
That's how weird the plot structure is laid out.
And I absolutely agree. I actually kind of wondered if originally, like, and I had to do the research on it because, like, I'd heard of this movie but like never seen it. And at first, I forgot that Blake Edwards had directed it because I thought it was a John Derek movie. Because I was like, well, Bo Derek being half naked, that's par for the. Oh wait, no, it's Blake Edwards. No shit. But yeah, no, I almost wondered if it had been kind of a original 1990s It TV movie that has just become a film. Like, nope, this was actually in theaters. Oh, Blake, buddy, what was happening to you? Did Columbia get in the way?
Like Blake Edwards wrote a short film about how a short British man fucks a hot blonde, and they were like, "Can you fluff this up a bit? Can you beef it up? Can you draw this out and make it a real movie?"
Jeez.
I don't want to make a real movie. I have a weird fetish, and I want to see small British men fuck hot blondes. I'm like, we get it, Blake Edwards, you weirdo, but we want a real movie now. We gave you $15 million for this. Fine. And then he hired comedy writers to do the dentist bit.
And we emerged as you see us now.
I want to get your thoughts on the movie, your craft elements, your burning desires, because I really want to treat the next part separately. So, yeah,
no, pretty much you've said a lot of it yourself. I think the movie is it's good. It has pacing and structure issues. And again, you can nitpick most movies, on that too. Some have better structure, have less story. You can find something about every movie that is not perfect or could use some work. This movie stands on its own 2 feet, albeit drunken and wobbly, since we have to throw in a Dudley Moore being drunk joke somewhere in here.
It stands a lot of brandy,
right? And so it stands on its own. I think the acting is really, really good in this. I know we're talking the previous 2 films. It's like this. There's no acting going on. It's just, hey, do you have C cup to D cup breasts and can look good in a bikini? You're hired. Get your ass in here.
A community theater presented by the PTA level of acting.
Right. But no, I think Dudley Moore does really good. I was actually shocked because I'd heard a lot of shit about Bo Derek's acting in just anything she'd ever done. And in this, she's actually really, really good. And I was like, well, shit, you can act. Okay, so your husband, when you guys did movies later, was like, don't act, just look hot and sexy. All right, cool. Easy day at work.
And years later, Gal Gadot would do the same thing.
Now, to be nice.
Oh, behave. What?
But no, Julie Andrews, as always, is a treasure in this. Brian Dennehy, I absolutely loved. Again, just seeing him something different than trying to kill Sylvester Stallone. But at this point, if you're an actor that was born like in the 50s or the 60s, at some point you have probably tried to kill Sylvester Stallone on screen.
Who hasn't?
Yeah, you've tried to kill Sylvester Stallone on screen on that unreleased film that we don't talk about.
Sure.
But no, Robert Webber as the gay best friend, I really loved, because again, the whole time, anytime he had one of his scenes, that Patton Oswalt, gay best friend popped into my head. I'm sorry, finish. But I want to stay on Robert Webber when you're done. Yeah, no, just real quick. On that, I thought it was very well written. I loved the fact that they didn't have this like weird attraction thing trying to be another subplot in there. It's just like, we're friends and I like dick and you like tits and pussy, bro. kind of way.
Yeah.
But no, sorry, step onto Robert Webber while we're still there.
Well, I want to talk about the third scene where he's
Yeah.
broken up with his pet boy.
Mm.
And the reason why he's broken up with the pet boy, and they had alluded to it in an earlier scene, is, and I want to preface this by saying that we here on the Rad Legend Broadcasting Network are accepting and understanding of all relationship dynamics. Doesn't necessarily mean we're going to engage in them, but we're not going to say anyone is better or worse than the other. They exist in the world. They exist with people in them, and we do not want to shame people for participating in the relationship dynamic that works for them.
Mhm.
With that out of the way.
All that being said, folks, if you didn't hear that long pregnant pause,
what he's talking about is an interesting dynamic between an elder man and a young man. And the young man, I made a joke, I was flipping about it, but I'm going to be a little less flip and kind of put on my serious personality. And he's kind of got a pet boy. And the pet boy, kind of like our boy in the first movie, Hardbodies, is taking the opportunity to exist in this man's world as a pet, as, you will take care of me, and I will, it'll be transactional, and I will give you love and affection and attention in a way that you're not going to get from anyone else. And you will have the sort of veneer, the shiny coating of having the love and affection of a much younger person, and all of what that entails, because there is perceived value in it by others. Right. Oh, look at you, you scored a young babe. Babe could be man or woman in this case.
Yeah.
That has value in our culture, for better or for worse. And so there is that transactional relationship, but it comes with pitfalls. And that is, and it's funny because I actually had to deal with this with somebody in real life, talking about this, where, it's a older man and a younger man in a relationship. And the frustration is that the younger man, while doesn't mind being a somewhat kept person, also is a young person and wants to go out and have fun and do shit. And that's what's happening in this movie. Is there's a bit where Robert Redford kind of says to him, he's like, I don't like those friends you hang out with. And the illusion is you're messing around. We don't know if their relationship is open. It's fucking 1979. It's, well, whether they are or they aren't, they're not saying it in the movie that's meant for mass appeal in the year of our Lord in America, 1979. Mm-hmm. But certainly the implication from Robert Webber is a bit of jealousy and a bit of, I give you a home, I give you love, I give you affection, I take care of you, and you should be loyal to me, and I should be number one to you, and I'm not feeling like I am. I feel like I don't know if he says this or he alludes to it, but he's like, I feel like you placate me just long enough so that you can run off and be with the people you really want to be with, but they're not going to take care of you like I am because they are not rich and I am.
Right.
And eventually that kind of runs its course and they break up. And Robert Webber says to Dudley Moore, I'm too stubborn to take him back. Kind of tacitly admitting that he felt used, but he misses being doted on by a young babe.
Right.
And he's in conflict and he doesn't know what to do with it. But because he is a man and he is a man in 1979, above middle age, he's not going to sacrifice his principles and let his emotions rule his decision making. But his heart is breaking, and he's burdened by all of these conflicting emotions and whatnot. And it's not the focus of the movie, but it was a really powerful bit. And if you blink, you missed it.
Yeah. And I really enjoyed that part of the story. It saddens me, though, for the most part, that every time that they approach a story like this, and I know here's where we're going to start getting a little more serious. In the year of our Lord, 2025, we must fear and be aware of older people, both male and female, who want a younger person because in their relationship as a toy or as a partner and stuff like that. For, as you pointed out, the status of it. Look at you scored the hot, young babe, you dirty old man or woman, you. However, There are people out there, and again, this is very specific to my own personal life, my own rape that happened was from a much older woman. Because again, that same idea. Hey, I'm with a hot, young, albeit underage guy or boy, but there are so many relationships where a age difference of over a decade still works. You see it in relationships all the time that they're not about grooming. It's simply because somebody has reached quote unquote middle age, but has not, their spirit and their energy does not match their peers. I've known several older people that, they're in their late 40s and they're, dating and or married to someone in their late 20s. Yeah. And the whole reason for that is it's like, I cannot, and this is the best, since this ties into this, I'm going to go very briefly into it without going into a diatribe or a tear, is I asked him about that once. I was like, people kind of give you crap for this. They really shouldn't. And that's why we don't talk to those friends anymore, but whatever. I was like, why, is it for the, hey, look at the trophy wife? He's like, oh God, no. He goes, if I wanted a trophy wife, I wouldn't be who I am. He goes, I cannot bear to be around people my own age for the very specific reasons they bore the shit out of me. They are literally staring at the end of the game instead of looking at the game now. And he's like,
cut in real quick. That's why it's in the movie, because it's one of the, when Dudley Moore is struggling with his own, with his own age, and he's sort of looking at the best friend, he was just like, you have what I want. That's sort of where he gets the idea from.
Yeah.
You have a young babe who makes you feel young again, like when the world was new. I want that. I'm going to pursue that. And then he sees Bo Derek.
Right. And I was actually in a roundabout way kind of getting to that. It saddens me that like every time, and I'm sure I've missed a movie where they made it work. Anytime we do the older and younger thing, because Dudley Moore in this is supposed to be 42. Bo Derek in real life, when she's doing this movie, is 23. So obviously there is a very large gap there. But the stories always seem to point at the bad direction of it. And I get it to a point, especially in this movie when it's like, it's not because he's in love with her or, he spent a lot of time with her and fallen in love. It's because he wants that gold ring or the brass ring, I guess, is the better term for it. So in this case, it's done well. It just, anytime they do it, it's like, oh, the old man has problems and needs to accept the fact that he's falling apart and dying and shut the fuck up. It's like, and then you look at all the people who wrote the movie and you're like, you hit on some 23-year-old girl at a bar. She told you to go fuck yourself. You went home with your little angry thorn fuck stick and wrote this movie out to take revenge.
They had to cross out the title that says Projection the Movie.
Right.
But
and
go ahead. I'm sorry, but there's something I wanted to tie this to.
No, I was just kind of going around the circle, just going back up. So yeah, go ahead.
I want to say this, and then we can move on to the bit with Bo Derek and Dudley Moore, because it is the heart of this picture, and something that when I heard, I was like, I kind of like Leonardo DiCaprio. Like, that right there, and I was like shaking my girlfriend. I'm like, she said the thing. When I'm less concerned. I think it's great points that you're bringing up, and I don't say this to undercut what you're saying, but I think to me the interesting dynamic is the concept of ownership in a relationship, belonging. I gave you a house and a lifestyle. I've given you everything. You owe me. And the guy's like, I don't know, you shit. Well, then I have no incentive to do this anymore. And then, and then fights with his own self about rekindling that relationship, because he kind of comes around to the fact that his motivation to provide a lifestyle for a younger person was to have that younger person in his life, and is just now willing to accept it on the younger person's terms and shift the power dynamic.
Absolutely.
And that's what leads to, and that's all interesting stuff to me. Mm-hmm. Because I think the movie sort of does what a good movie does best, which is throws the idea out there and lets the audience figure out which way they lean on it. Because some people would say the power dynamic belongs with the person providing the lifestyle and not with the person taking advantage of the lifestyle. And other people would say, you don't own a person. We got rid of that in the 1800s, fought a war over it and everything.
Right. You might have heard of it. But
then there's a third side to this, and that is, what if you choose ownership? there's certainly, especially in the BDSM kink community,
There's a lot of that. Yeah.
yeah, there's people who, I use the word pet out there. There's people who do choose that. They choose to be submissive. They choose to be slaves. Jesse and I made a huge thing about it when I made him take the BDSM test. But these are long story. But these are things and conversations that you have to have openly.
Mhm.
And when you're not having them, and you're just making assumptions, and you're setting, you have expectations, and then they're not being met. You have exactly what happens to John Weber in this movie. There's an expectation that you will be loyal, that you will show fidelity to me because I provided you a lifestyle that you would not otherwise have.
Mhm.
And then when he doesn't, he's depressed and he's anxious about it and he's frustrated and he lashes out in anger, and throws the guy out. We're told. This is all his conversation in the movie. You don't actually see any of it. And I think that's just enough for the audience to kind of figure out where they land on the issue. And I think it's as relevant then in 1979 as it is today in the year of our Lord 2025. And I think it's like one of the more interesting things about this movie, but not nearly as interesting as what we're going to talk about next. But before I do, I wanted to get you to weigh in on that.
Yeah, no, and it's you nailed it right on the head. It is as relevant today as it was then. It's the most fun things about those scenes is literally Robert Webber is kind of shown to be the wise friend who we should be listening to, only to find out he's just about as broken in a way as Dudley Moore. And they both have to learn from that and grow and become different. But one of the greatest things I think it does, and I'll just wrap up with this because you basically said it all, is this does what movies should do, is especially movies like this. I don't think every movie needs to do this, but it sparks after movie conversations.
Yeah, absolutely.
Around the bar, around the restaurant, when you've just gotten out and seen it and been like, so, thoughts on that, everyone, please weigh in. And, that really opens up that sort of stuff for conversation. And it brings this film, those scenes alone in the big scene we're about to talk about, is what elevates this film over Hardbodies and Spring Break, is because it is, all three are art. People worked on it. People kicked their ass to get it done. Cannonball shots were taken over and over again to get the most perfect cannonball jump into the pool. But this movie stands alone as a piece of art and introspective as well as it is funny.
Yeah.
As opposed to just being like, and tits, which there's nothing wrong with. Just saying.
And look, tits falling down a flight of stairs. Comedy.
One last thing. For everything else, for people watching this and going, okay, well, the one thing they haven't talked about is I can understand why Hardbodies is called Hardbodies. I can understand why Spring Break is called Spring Break. Why the fuck is 10 called 10? And the reason it's called 10, because I actually looked this up, is that Bo Derek is seen as the perfect 10 in female beauty. And so there's an objectification, as we've seen in the previous two movies, in this one as well, even in the title before you even get to the first line, or the first shot for that matter.
And if Bo Derek were that age today, she would be cast as the evil queen in Snow White. Dog with a bone, Dorian Price. Dog
never
with
letting
a
it go.
bone.
He's fucking Rathaconing over there. To the last will I grapple with thee from hell's hot.
And that is what is known as breaking the tension. I want to read something to you, Dorian. Do you like it when I read to you? Sit back,
Please.
Great. Smoke a cigarette while I read to you. I went over to Fancy and I asked Fancy, and I said, can you create a short paragraph that sums up the scene about and what Bo, Derek, and Dudley Moore are saying to each other? So at this point in the movie, Bo Derek is married. She's got a husband. He's hanging out in Mexico. He's doing a thing. I think he injures himself is what happened. So he's in the hospital. So, Bo Derek being a hot woman and, without a man is like, well, I'm going to get some dick and meat tonight if it's the last thing I do. And Dudley Moore has been giving her the appropriate amount of attention to get that meter all the way up to 10. So here we go. Dudley Moore and Bo Derek, we are finally reached the climax of this movie. We are doing the thing.
Wah, wah.
And so Bo Derek, being every hippie, dippy, weirdo, hot chick you've ever met in your life. Never meet your heroes, by the way. They will always disappoint you. Just take my hand, Dorian. Will you take my hand?
I'm
Let's walk
taking
over
your
this.
hand.
And let's walk over this bridge together for just a moment. It's a short bridge, but a bridge nonetheless. You have longed for this woman. You have seen her from afar. You have not said 2 words to her. You don't even know the sound of her voice, but she is an angel sent from heaven, the picture of beauty, a 10, if you will, a dream that you want to acquire. And it finally gets to that point. You're there. You are about to make this dream a reality. You are about to conquer the 10. You are about to ascend to the ultimate prize of manhood and meet the dream that God has bestowed upon you. And you say to her, woman, who is the dream, the love of my life, the angel, say something profound so that I may revel in this moment. And she says, well, isn't just having sex with all kinds of people when you're married wonderful? And Dudley Moore's head falls off, rolls into the hallway, and he walks trudgingly after it, and then goes back to Julie Andrews. Now, that's me summing up what happens in that scene. What I'm trying to say in a very silly way is how 10 really does capture the idea of an idealized dream, an idealized person, and them never living up to your expectation. Like, part of what sends Dudley Moore crashing back down to earth again is how she so profoundly disappoints him as a human.
It is a bitch slap, John Wayne style, all the way from the hip. Full, I mean, not angrily,
Yeah.
but it's. I actually loved this scene because, like, as a writer, you know some of the tropes and you know it's coming. You know it has to. Just the way they filmed it, they've Chekhov gun.
I was going to say, it's like, again, say something profound, make me love you, and she goes, hee-haw! I'm like, oh, God.
Right. Go full Anchorman. I immediately regret this decision. It seemed like such a better idea from up there.
Yeah. So, that's sort of the preamble to this. This is what the ChatGPT wrote. In a pivotal beachside scene, Jenny, who is played by Bo Derek, and George Dudley Moore finally connect after his obsessive pursuit. As they talk, and here's the rub, Jenny exudes, I'm going to apologize to you. I don't get to do this anymore because I was told to behave myself by certain partners I have in this network. So you're getting it all, baby.
Bring it on.
Drenched in my sexual nonsense. Anyway.
Could someone
Speaking
please
of
make
which,
the showers free after this is over? I think I might have need of it. Thank you.
Fire hose, son. Fire hose.
Right.
As they talk, Jenny exudes calm confidence and emotional clarity, openly discussing her views on sex, freedom, and personal agency. Oh, Dorian Price of the Screaming Boy podcast. There's that word, agency, again.
Yep. Had to pop up eventually.
She tells George that she's okay. Here's the thing, everyone. All right, class, you've been waiting all night for this. Here it is. She tells George that she sleeps with who she wants, when she wants, because it gives her pleasure. A direct contrast to George's insecure, neurotic inner world. While George expects some romantic ideal or emotional payoff from the encounter, Jenny treats it casually, leaving him both stunned and emotionally unsatisfied. The moment exposes the hollowness of George's fantasy and begins his slow realization that youthful beauty and sexual conquest aren't the antidotes to his midlife crisis. He projects onto her an otherworldly wisdom that she is not in possession of. And how did she earn that projection? By existing. She is a pretty potato. She did nothing to make him think or believe she was anything but what she was. A cornrowed-haired, beautiful goddess of a woman who did not owe him fulfillment or philosophical depth
or anything,
or even intelligence. Yeah.
Right.
But he set that expectation, Dorian Price. He expected her to ascend from heaven with all of those things. Descend from heaven, rather. And she went, hee-haw. And then got mad at her for being less than his expectation. And
You got a pretty mouth.
And then walked out of the room after his head that had fallen off.
Right.
I fucking love this scene. I don't all the way agree with her point of view, but fuck me, who cares? I love that she said it. I love that the writers acknowledge it. I love that in 1979, we're having a fairly frank discussion about, I mean, granted, we're in the death throes of the sexual revolution, so I'm kind of looking at it with modern eyes and going, oh, wow, this thing that we're still wrestling with, that there's an entire community kind of built around, again, the poly kink, BDSM community. It's like a central pillar of that, is sexual openness, the belief of normalizing a variety of partners meeting needs and stuff of that nature. And there she is basically saying that. And Dudley Moore, aghast as if he had seen a ghost. What the fuck do you even get married for then? And she goes, because I wanted to. That's it.
Again, she's a simple character, but one of the things I do love about the scene is that it would have been so easy to take her down a philosophical path with it. Mm-hmm. And instead they just make her a very simplistic, young girl. She's not an idiot, but it's again like,
dude, she does a whole bit about like, can we put on the classical record and fuck to this because I like that sort of thing.
Yeah.
She's not dumb.
And again, it's so great because in a way, Dudley Moore is both his own protagonist and antagonist, which is hard to do in a movie sometimes when you make your lead both the good guy and the bad guy, not for any malicious reasons, but you're kind of, for all the age and wisdom you should have acquired at this time.
Well, I said before about 20 to 30 minutes ago, I said you root for Dudley Moore because at this point they've kicked him and beat him so badly. You're just like, stop, he's already dead.
He's dead.
Like, now, you're rooting for him because you don't want him to die, essentially.
Yes. You have to run in there and save him, like all the Justice League and the black helicopters to get Dudley Moore out of this shit.
It's like Dudley Moore's just lying in a puddle of his own nonsense, and there's Bo Derek going, I just like to sleep around, and he's twitching. He's just like, Black Hawk down! We gotta get Dudley Moore out of here.
You're holding Dudley Moore being like, we're gonna go back to New York, we're gonna start that 3-man band. You'll be on drums, I'll be tickling the ivories, just keep breathing!
Yes. Continue.
But no, the scene is so beautiful because it's the ultimate, in my opinion, payoff.
Yeah.
To everything that's set up. Anything else would have been a letdown. I mean, I know Dudley Moore gets let down, but that's on him. As the audience, anything else would have been a letdown.
It's relevant today because of there are, and I want to go off on a tangent, and I really am going to keep this as short as I possibly can. I'm going to say as many words as it's going to take to get through this and nothing more. So much of what's driving modern divorce appears, if you believe social media, to be the grass is greener elsewhere. I am not happy. I am not fulfilled in the life that's been built, that I have helped build, or that was built for me or around me. Therefore, I will seek happiness elsewhere from someone else. God forbid I should seek it from inside. But let's stay with what's going on here. And then 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years, 10 years later, same girl, same guy. Well, I was wrong. The grass isn't any greener anywhere else, and I should not have blown up my family to live a fool's dream.
Right.
And they were saying that in this movie in 1979. We don't learn a thing.
Nope.
And that, Dorian, is why I've held you hostage for 2 hours, so I could get to that point. This whole podcast was leading to that we were saying it in 1979. Don't blow up your family. Don't blow up your relationships. There is no happiness anywhere else. Just fix your fucking self. And we don't listen.
No, and that's why I think this movie stands above the rest, is that not only is it still fun, it's, Blake Edwards still, Blake Edwards, for those of you who, are not film students and film freaks like myself and know stuff from way before you were born, Blake Edwards was the god, director-wise, of slapstick comedy for the longest time. And, in the Pink Panther movies and Great Race, you see that. This movie stands out, strangely enough, in his filmography for being one that is still funny and slapsticky, but is intellectual and is intelligent, and makes you ask questions, makes you think about yourself. If you are in the age range that Dudley Moore was in, whenever you see the movie, you look at it from his point of view. If you're younger, like where I watched it from, was like, okay, so this is a warning bell. This is the thing in the fog that goes, do not drive this way, because this is what will happen.
Yep.
So be aware, and but at the same time gives you a fun, ride to get to that point. And again, the scene is masterfully written and shot and acted, and for something as simplistic as we get in this scene, it is done to the level that, of Oscar-winning material.
Yeah, it's, if you don't like any part of 10 up to this point and you wonder why were you made to watch this, it's worth it to watch just for the Bo Derek scene. I was telling Robert earlier in the week, I said, this might not be your thing, but the scene between Bo Derek and Dudley Moore at the end makes it all worth it, and I think it's worth watching.
Oh yeah.
And I would say that to anybody. That's really my final thing I'm going to say on 10, so we can close out. Is we're so in need and thirsty for really good cinema that is relatable, cinema that speaks to the conditions of today, not just the conditions of 50 years ago. Well, who better than Canyon, and what better than 10? 10 is, in a lot of ways, not a perfect film, but perfect for our age.
Yeah. And it is something to look back on and watch and walk yourself through, even if, you're nothing like any of the characters in this, but to walk through their journey with them, because you will get something out of it. And again, I am not calling this movie the Lawrence of Arabia of these three films, but if one had to get that designation, it would be this one.
If I ever do a part 2 to this, and I won't, but if I ever do a part 2 to this, I think I would definitely have to do Hamburger the movie, Hot Dog the movie, and Ski School. If you had to pick 3 raunchy 80s sex comedies to do a part 2 to this series, a further examination of the intellectual and heartfelt genre that is the hard body raunchy sex comedy, and you can't pick Revenge of the Nerds or Porky's, what would you pick? What would be the next 3 movies you'd want to look at?
See, again, I haven't watched a lot of this genre, but can't pick Porky's. See, I want to say Caddyshack, but honestly, I'd want to throw Dr. Detroit in there because it's a little different. Like, it doesn't have the young kids off gallivanting in the sand wearing basically nothing. But it is a great character arc story and does not get enough love. So if I had to add one to it, I'd have to say probably Dr. Detroit, because there's enough smuttiness in that. Probably one of the best lines of all time comes when Dan Aykroyd's character from Dr. Detroit has a nightmare and wakes up and goes, "No, I will not sell my own mother." And his mom walks in and goes, "Well, of course you wouldn't, dear, but it's a very nice thought."
Well, folks, selling your mother was phrase the pace here on the Rattlevision Broadcasting Network, so we're going to end there. Dorian, I have thoroughly enjoyed tonight's podcast. I don't always enjoy what I do here, but tonight was absolutely wonderful, and I truly appreciate you dancing around and around and around the ballroom with me tonight. You are a perfect dance partner tonight.
Yourself as well, sir. It was a lovely dance. We'll do it again.
Yes, sir. Speaking of doing things again, this past Sunday, myself and Harry Broadhurst did an Indie-Siders. We looked at House of Glory, City of Dreams. We also talked about John Cena's heel turn and his feud with Cody Rhodes and the triple threat that'll be main eventing night 1 of WrestleMania. You always go back to the Toxic X, Dorian. They always go back to the Toxic X. And Paul Heyman and CM Punk were no different. There stood a pretty little girl, in her handsome beau, Roman Reigns. And Roman Reigns turned to his pretty girl, who he rescued from obscurity, and he says, "Pretty girl, won't you be with me the night of WrestleMania?" And the pretty little girl that is Paul Heyman looked across the aisle at the bad boy, the Toxic X, CM Punk. And of course, she said, "No, Roman Reigns, I will go to him. I must." Because they always go back to their Toxic X's. Pro wrestling, everybody.
In a nutshell.
So there was that. Speaking of toxic pro wrestling, we looked at Minecraft on Monday. Next week, this Sunday, as a matter of fact, Jesse and I are going to be allegedly reading 3 Joker books: Joker Killer Smile, Joker Presents a Puzzle Box, and The Joker War. So there's that. We go from the idiotic to the sublime as we review Warfare from A24, and scared the pants out of my daughter. And then Wednesday, myself and Alexis Hayner will be looking at The Bear Season 3. And a week from tonight, we will be kicking off WrestleMania week with The West Wing Season 4. I have done that joke like 5 times.
Right.
Dorian Price, show us where you pissed from.
Okay, well, again, I'm Dorian Price, Dorian Price Videography and Photography. You can find us on Facebook that way, Instagram, X, Twitter, the whole shebang. If it exists as a social media, we're on it as that. We just got to do a lovely show, which included the bands last night, in fact, Under Oath, Rise Against, and Papa Roach. It was a fantastic show. The only complaint I had about the show was that Rise Against didn't seem to know how they wanted to end their set and just kind of kept going. But
did the singer put on a devil costume and drink chemicals and blow himself up?
No, it was just like they would play a really badass song that you're like, yeah, this is the ender, because this you want to go out with that like boom, 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 good night,
right.
We love you.
Right.
Barcelona. Yeah, kind of thing. And they just kept going. And it was funny because they'd have a really banging, like, that's where you end. And then it would be like, slow song time. And I'm like, no, that's not how. I'm sorry. I do this for a living. You're the band. You guys make more money than I do at the moment. So
yeah, finish and get off of her. Don't finish and linger.
Right. It's like Papa Roach is waiting. But no, it was a fantastic show. And I got to do that with my lovely girlfriend Mick, and that was a lot of fun. So gonna have to be posting some video that I can on Instagram for that. But next time you guys will see me here is actually this Monday on Warfare. Very excited for that one. Usually not my the movie I would normally sign up for on this thing, but I'm broadening my horizons, and the trailers for it looked really good. And so I'm excited for that. But yes, next Thursday as well, I will be returning as your commander-in-chief, the president of these United States, in my pulled back hair, suit and tie, which freaks everyone out, but we're doing it because at this point I find it funny. But yeah, other than that, we got a few more shows coming up. Going to be doing something, and I'll be able to talk about more on this on Monday, but the fantastic Tequila Bob and their wonderful line of Black Label Tequila will be in Kansas City to do a tasting. I'll have more information for you guys on that on Monday. But if you can get on the guest list, you're definitely going to want to be there, because this is top-notch tequila, and they go all around the country and around the world selling this, and they are going to be here in the lovely Midwest. I don't know why, but that's not my fault. So that's what I'm doing. But again, this has been a lot of fun. I have no problem coming on these podcasts of movies that came out ages before I was even conceived, because it's a fun blast of the past, and it's always fun to do this with you, Mark, and get a new point of view on it. And honestly, after us talking, I may go back and watch these 3 again, just because some of the stuff you said, and it's going to make me look at it from a different point of view. So, yeah.
Well, we know each other a little bit better now, and now that I've done my Lord of the Rings joke for Dorian Price, I have to go check on a guest. Be well, be safe, and behave.